On the night of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. It was operated by a Boeing 777, widely considered one of the safest commercial aircraft in the sky. The weather was perfectly clear. The plane had zero technical issues, the crew was highly experienced, and the 239 passengers and crew on board settled in for what should have been a standard, routine 6-hour journey. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane approached Vietnamese airspace, the co-pilot made a completely routine radio sign-off to the civilian air traffic control. "Good night, Malaysian 370. But moments later, the aircraft's transponder stopped transmitting. To the civilian radar systems tracking its progress on the ground, Flight 370 simply disappeared. A 300,000-pound commercial jetliner, packed with redundant tracking systems, had completely dropped off global surveillance networks. Civilian radar requires a plane to actively broadcast its location. Military radar, however, is a passive system that simply bounces radio waves off physical objects in the sky. When investigators checked local military radar logs, they found a distinct signature. Instead of continuing north toward Beijing, the aircraft had turned back, crossing the Malaysian peninsula and heading straight out over the Andaman Sea. During this entire maneuver, the cockpit was completely silent. The pilots made no distress calls, and no automated emergency signals were ever broadcast. This physical trace proved the plane hadn't suffered a sudden mid-air breakup. It was engaged in a sustained, controlled flight away from its intended destination, deep into the night. This monitor shows how satellites track aircraft. Even with radios disabled, the jet sent automated hourly handshakes to orbit. Analyzing these signal delays sketched geometric rings of possible locations, plotting a startling trajectory. Flight 370 traveled thousands of kilometers south into the remote Indian Ocean. Even when a crew goes totally silent and primary radios are disabled, modern machines still leave a faint digital footprint that investigators can reverse engineer. In July 2015, over a year after the plane vanished, a large white piece of aircraft wing known as a flaperon washed ashore on Reunion Island, thousands of miles west of Australia. Aviation engineers matched the serial numbers on this flaperon and later other fragments found along the African coast, confirming they belonged to Flight 370. For the world, it was the first tangible proof that the jet had ultimately crashed into the water. This physical evidence led to 3 main hypotheses: a catastrophic mechanical failure, an onboard fire incapacitating the crew, or deliberate human action to crash. But isolated panels of torn metal can only tell investigators that the plane was destroyed. Without the primary fuselage, every single one of those hypotheses remains a guess. The main barrier preventing a definitive answer is the Indian Ocean itself. The search zone spans millions of square kilometers of open water, with certain trenches plunging over 6,000 meters into total darkness. An international coalition deployed fleets of ships, aircraft, and deep-sea autonomous vehicles to scan the ocean floor. It became the most expensive search operation in aviation history. They were looking for the aircraft's cockpit voice and flight data recorders, the black boxes. Recovering these devices is the only way to access the final hours of telemetry and audio to figure out exactly what happened on the flight deck. Today, more than a decade after the initial disappearance, the families of the 239 people aboard continue to wait for an explanation that may never come. Flight 370 serves as a humbling reality check. Even surrounded by a web of global satellites, military radar, and continuous digital tracking, human engineering can still be entirely swallowed by the sheer scale of the natural world.